History has a way of polishing the legacies of the powerful, painting them as icons of success, genius, or cultural influence. But sometimes, when you scratch beneath the surface, what you find is far darker than most people would ever imagine. Behind the glamour of royalty, the brilliance of innovators, and the prestige of industry, there lies a troubling truth. Some of history's most admired and successful figures openly sympathized with the Nazis. Today, we're pulling back the curtain to reveal 10 wealthy, respected, and celebrated individuals whose reputations were forever tainted by their connections to fascism. Their stories remind us that money, power, and talent can sometimes hide disturbing loyalties. Number 10. Edward VIII. When King Edward VIII gave up the throne to Mary Wallis Simpson, the world saw it as one of the greatest love stories of the century. But the reality was far more sinister. After his abdication, Edward, now the Duke of Windsor, traveled to Nazi Germany in 1937 with his new wife. There, the couple met with Adolf Hitler himself, smiling for the cameras and even raising their arms in a Nazi salute. German propaganda used these images to their advantage, spreading them far and wide. Edward's sympathies for the Nazi regime were not just speculation. Captured German documents revealed that the Nazis hoped to reinstall him as king if Britain were defeated. The British government grew so concerned about his loyalties that they quietly shipped him off to the Bahamas during the war, labeling him a potential security risk. Whether Edward was a traitor or simply reckless, his actions left a permanent stain on the royal family's history. Number 9. Torkild Rieber. In the corporate world, Torkild Rieber rose from humble Norwegian immigrant to chairman of Texaco, one of America's oil giants. But his business dealings revealed a disturbing pattern. Rieber secretly funneled oil to fascist dictator Francisco Franco during the Spanish Civil War, breaking U.S. neutrality laws. Even worse, he maintained close ties with Nazi Germany, arranging shipments and even touring German industrial sites with Hermann Göring. German intelligence described him as a sincere admirer of Hitler. When the American press exposed his activities, the backlash was swift. Texaco's board forced Rieber to resign in 1940. His downfall showed that even in the world of business, fascist sympathies came with consequences. Number 8. Philip Johnson. Philip Johnson's name may not be instantly recognizable, but his architectural works are legendary. From the sleek design of 550 Madison Avenue to the iconic Glass House in Connecticut, Johnson left a permanent mark on modern architecture. Yet, behind his creative brilliance was an unsettling truth. Johnson was not just a casual observer of Nazism, he was an admirer. He traveled to Germany, attended Nazi rallies, and openly praised Hitler in his writings. He described the invasion of Poland as a stirring spectacle, and even flirted with starting a fascist political movement in the United States. Although he eventually distanced himself from these views, later calling them the stupidest thing I ever did, his early devotion to fascism remains an indelible stain on his legacy. Number 7. Ezra Pound. Ezra Pound is often remembered as a literary genius, a poet whose sharp, minimalist style influenced generations of writers. But his politics were deeply disturbing. An admirer of Mussolini and sympathetic to Hitler, Pound became one of the most vocal Western supporters of fascism. From Italy, he recorded hundreds of propaganda broadcasts, railing against Western democracy, praising fascist economics, and spewing anti-Semitic rhetoric. He even urged the Allies to surrender. After the war, Pound was arrested by American forces and charged with treason. Instead of prison, he spent over a decade in a psychiatric institution. Once hailed as a literary prophet, Pound's reputation collapsed under the weight of his fascist devotion. Number 6. Charles Lindbergh. Charles Lindbergh was once America's golden boy. His historic solo flight across the Atlantic in 1927 turned him into a global hero. But just a decade later, his reputation took a shocking turn. After multiple visits to Germany, Lindbergh became enamored with the Nazi regime's military might. In 1938, Hermann Göring awarded him the Service Cross of the German Eagle, an honor that outraged the American public. Lindbergh also became the leading voice of the America First movement, fiercely opposing U.S. involvement in World War II. In one infamous speech, he blamed Jewish communities for pushing America toward war, echoing Nazi propaganda. Though he later supported the war effort after Pearl Harbor, Lindbergh's earlier anti-Semitic rhetoric and admiration for Nazi Germany forever clouded his heroic image. Question: if Lindbergh had never voiced his controversial opinions, do you think he'd still be remembered today as a flawless American hero, or would his reputation eventually have crumbled anyway? Share your thoughts in the comments. I'm curious to know what you think. Number 5. Knut Hamsun. Norwegian author Knut Hamsun won the Nobel Prize in Literature and influenced writers like Kafka and Hemingway. Yet, during World War II, he openly supported the Nazi occupation of Norway. Hamsun met with top Nazi officials including Joseph Goebbels and even praised Hitler himself. After Hitler's death, Hamsun wrote an obituary describing him as a reformer of the highest order. This shocking praise for the world's most notorious dictator led to his arrest after the war. He was fined heavily for treason, and his literary achievements were forever overshadowed by his political sympathies. Number 4. Harold Harmsworth, Lord Rothermere. Through his newspaper, the Daily Mail, Harold Harmsworth shaped modern tabloid journalism. But he also used its pages to promote fascist ideas. Harmsworth openly supported British fascist leader Oswald Mosley and expressed admiration for Hitler in the early years of Nazi rule. He even exchanged letters with Hitler, which the Nazis later used as propaganda to suggest Britain quietly supported them. Public backlash turned Harmsworth into a pariah, and though he attempted to rebuild his reputation, he died in 1940 with his name disgraced. Number 3. Coco Chanel. Coco Chanel revolutionized fashion with her timeless designs, the little black dress, Chanel No. 5, and her chic reinvention of women's clothing. But her personal life during the Nazi occupation of Paris tells a different story. Chanel became romantically involved with a German intelligence officer, which afforded her luxury accommodations at the Ritz Hotel during the war. Declassified documents later revealed she wasn't just enjoying perks. She was registered as a Nazi agent, reportedly working to recruit spies across Europe. Even more disturbing, she attempted to use Nazi anti-Jewish laws to seize control of her perfume company from its Jewish owners. For all her contributions to fashion, Chanel's wartime choices remain one of the darkest chapters in the history of haute couture. Number 2. Wernher von Braun. Wernher von Braun is celebrated as the visionary who helped America win the space race. His rocket designs led to the Saturn V, the ship that carried astronauts to the moon. But long before he became a NASA icon, von Braun was a devoted Nazi. A member of both the Nazi Party and the SS, he oversaw the construction of V-2 rockets using slave labor. Tens of thousands of prisoners died under horrific conditions building his weapons. After the war, the U.S. quietly brought him to America under Operation Paperclip, erasing his Nazi past to exploit his genius for space exploration. Von Braun may have helped mankind reach the stars, but his legacy will always be haunted by the human cost of his early work. Number 1. Henry Ford. Henry Ford revolutionized industry, perfecting the assembly line and making automobiles affordable for the average American. But Ford was also one of history's most influential anti-Semites. Through his newspaper, the Dearborn Independent, he published a series of articles blaming Jews for society's problems. These writings were compiled into a book titled The International Jew, which later inspired Hitler himself. In Mein Kampf, Hitler praised Ford, calling him an inspiration. Ford even accepted Nazi Germany's highest honor for foreigners, the Grand Cross of the German Eagle, in 1938. His industrial brilliance built an empire, but his toxic views left a poisonous mark on history. These stories show that greatness in one arena, whether in art, politics, science, or business, does not erase dangerous ideologies. Power and influence can be used for innovation, but they can also spread hate and destruction. And for these 10 individuals, their legacies will forever be shadowed by their disturbing ties to Nazism.